I begin by commending at this point the Prime Minister Trudeau, Minister Bardish Chagger, Peter Flagel and the Anti-Racism Secretariat and their respective staffs for organizing this timely and necessary set of national anti-racism summits, beginning today with the National Summit on Anti-Semitism. I want also to express appreciation for the Indigenous blessing, Miigwech, and for the Prime Minister's referencing of Canada's Rabbi of Blessed Memory, was also my own personal rabbi and friend, Rabbi Bulka, and the upcoming Kindness Week, which has been inspired by him. Je suis très heureux.
I am very pleased to participate in this common cause that brings us together. The fight against hatred and anti-Semitism, and the fight against anti-Semitism, this is our fight.
We are witnessing and have been witnessing for some time, as the Prime Minister referenced in his eloquent remarks, an old, new, global, escalating, virulent, sophisticated, and even lethal anti-Semitism, which reached its tipping point during the recent Hamas war, where Jews are threatened and targeted in their neighborhoods and in the streets, in the campuses and in the communities, where we have been seeing synagogues torched, memorials defaced, institutions vandalized, and cemeteries desecrated. The whole finding expression in two particularly dramatic developments. First, 2020 saw the highest level of anti-Semitic hate crimes ever reached in the US, Canada, and Europe. But halfway through 2021, we already reached the level of hate crimes reached for all of 2020. Second, we are witnessing incendiary anti-Semitic hate in the social media, as Minister Chagger referenced, which also incentivizes offline violence. For example, in 1 week in May, there were 17,000 tweets that, quote, Hitler was right. And a just released study reported just a few days ago, reported a seismic increase of 912% in anti-Semitic hate in 1 year on the social media platform TikTok, where 41% of its 1.2 billion users are between the ages of 16 and 24. This pandemic of anti-Semitism, including the incendiary increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes and online hate speech, as I mentioned, are underpinned, disturbingly, by a number of dynamics that are not always appreciated, including, first, the mainstreaming, normalization, and legitimation of anti-Semitism in the political cultures. The absence of outrage, underscored by indifference and inaction. Second, the threat of anti-Semitism to our multicultural democracy. As Ahmed Shahid, the UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom and Democracy, put it, anti-Semitism is toxic to democracies, the canary in the mineshaft of evil, as Karina mentioned, and as we've learned only too painfully and too well, that while it begins with Jews, it doesn't end with Jews. Third is the globalization phenomenon. What happens in Paris, in London, UK, in the US, the threatening and targeting of Jews reverberates and is replicated back in Montreal, Toronto, and the rest of Canada. Fourth is the marginalization of the struggle against anti-Semitism in the necessary struggle against systemic racism. And we must be engaged in that struggle against systemic racism, whether it be racism against Indigenous people, against Black people and racialized Canadians, Asian Canadians, Muslims, but where the evidence has shown, regrettably, that somehow the struggle against anti-Semitism is being marginalized and even excluded from anti-racism education, training, and the like. Fifth is the laundering of anti-Semitism under the cover of anti-racism itself, a process initiated during the World Conference Against Racism in Durban in 2001, which turned into a conference of racism against Jews and the Jewish people, and where today Jews are increasingly characterized as part of the oppressor in the intersectionality discourse, and where the demonization of Israel has reverberated back and engaged the demonization of Jews. And finally, we are witnessing a revival of the old libels such as the Jews as the poisoners of the wells, where Jews, the Jewish people, and Israel are accused of manufacturing the COVID-19 virus, of spreading it, of profiting from it, and even, as we've seen in social media, where Jews are targeted as being and constituting the virus itself. And so the important question, what then do we do? As all of the above makes the convoking of this national summit as timely as it is necessary. May I share with you a set of foundational principles to underpin a prospective national action plan on anti-Semitism, and do so in a series of one-liners for reasons of time. One, we need to mandate Holocaust education and teaching about anti-Semitism in our elementary schools as well as our high schools and beyond. For the Holocaust is a paradigm for radical evil, as anti-Semitism is a paradigm for radical hate. Second, we need to combat anti-Semitism and also Holocaust distortion as part of the larger struggle for the promotion and protection of democracy, equality, human rights, and human dignity in our time, something common to all these national anti-racism summits, and we will have the National Summit on Islamophobia tomorrow. Number three, we need, and reference has been made to this, we need to enhance the adoption and implementation of the IHRA working definition on anti-Semitism, the most authoritative, comprehensive, and international definition that we have, one democratically adopted over a 15-year period and anchored in human rights principles and policy. And we need to mainstream its implementation across all sectors of our society, government, parliament, universities, law enforcement units, and the like. Four, we need to invoke and implement important parliamentary principles and precedents where Canada has played a distinguishable role. For example, the Ottawa Parliamentary Protocol to Combat Anti-Semitism and a little-known resolution adopted unanimously by the Canadian Parliament in February 2015, which established an important principle and precedent in calling upon the Canadian government to make the combating of anti-Semitism a priority in both our domestic and foreign policy. Five, we need to enhance security and protection for Jewish institutions, including synagogues, schools, community centers, memorial sites, and the like, under increasing threat and attack. And I appreciate the important and timely announcement made by the Prime Minister in this regard in his remarks. Number six, we need to combat anti-Semitic hate crimes using the 4 Ps: the prevention of such hate crimes, the protection of its victims, the prosecution of its perpetrators, and partnership between federal, provincial, and municipal law enforcement units, including also learning from the best practices of other countries in this regard. 7, we need to combat the explosive and incendiary anti-Semitism in the social media, which is now effectively a rules-free universe as we seek a rules-based international order by drawing upon the best legislative, policy, and regulatory initiatives, including the need to hold social media platforms accountable. 8, a zero tolerance policy for anti-Semitism in any of our political parties, where political leaders must call out anti-Semitism not only in the other's political party, but in their own, so that anti-Semitism does not become instrumentalized or weaponized as part of political partisanship. 9, we need to appreciate, and reference has been made to this by the Prime Minister and others, that Jews alone cannot combat anti-Semitism, that anti-Semitism cannot be fought, nor can it be won by Jews acting alone. What is needed is a constituency of conscience and action, reflecting the need and the imperative, therefore, for this national summit to combat anti-Semitism. And finally, and I say this as a Canadian for whom the UN is part of my DNA, human rights, part of our foreign policy, international law, a centerpiece of our identity. We have to combat the laundering of anti-Semitism under universal public values. As former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan put it, and I quote, "A UN that does not put the struggle against anti-Semitism at the forefront of its human rights agenda is a UN which regrettably betrays its past and forfeits its future." In conclusion, may this national summit be not only testimony about anti-Semitism in words, which it is important and what it is intended to be also, but what it is in fact intended to be in the long run, an action summit where words are translated into deeds, and not as a one-time thing, but as an ongoing commitment to the combating of the scourge of anti-Semitism, which affects us all. Thank you.